I never thought a single moment could completely destroy everything I once believed in. But that night, standing in our bedroom with undeniable proof shaking in my hands, I realized my entire world had just crumbled beneath me. I had just come home after a long, exhausting shift, hoping to collapse into bed next to my wife, Jessica. Instead, the sight that greeted me stopped me cold. A half-packed suitcase resting on the bed. But it wasn't the luggage that made my breath catch. It was what I discovered inside. A delicate, silky red lingerie set. One I had never seen her wear for me. And right beside it, a box of extra-large condoms. A sharp, icy sensation tightened in my chest as the horrifying truth settled over me like a lead weight. Across the room, Jessica stood at the mirror, lazily applying lipstick, acting as if my presence was nothing more than a passing thought. "Jessica," I managed, my voice unsteady. "What the hell is this?" She exhaled heavily, rolling her eyes at my reflection. "Oh, Daniel, don't be so dramatic." "Dramatic?" My grip on the lingerie tightened as my pulse hammered in my ears. "You've never worn this for me," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper, yet laced with something dangerously close to breaking. My free hand snatched up the condom box before I tossed it onto the bed. "And this? Do you think I'm an idiot?" She finally turned to face me, utterly unbothered. "It's for work," she said smoothly, arms folding across her chest. "I have a conference this weekend." I repeated her words back to her, disbelief dripping from every syllable. "A conference? With condoms? And lingerie?" She scoffed, shaking her head as if I were the unreasonable one. "You're reading too much into this." Then her phone buzzed on the dresser. The screen lit up with a name and a message that sent a wave of fire through my stomach. "Mr. Blackwood, can't wait to see you tonight." Before she could react, I snatched the phone, holding it up like a damning piece of evidence. "Who the hell is Mr. Blackwood, Jessica?" She didn't flinch, didn't even look guilty. Instead, she smirked. "Oh, Daniel, please," she said, her tone dripping with boredom. "You wouldn't even be able to handle the truth if I told you." Her arrogance ignited something inside me, something raw and seething. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. "Try me," I growled. She stepped closer, her perfume thick in the air between us. But this time, instead of drawing me in, it made my stomach turn. "I don't belong to you," she whispered, her voice taunting. "I can do whatever I want." Then came the final, vicious twist of the knife. Her lips curled into a smirk as she tilted her head. "My lover is waiting for me outside." Something inside me fractured. I stepped toward her, my jaw so tight it ached. My voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried a weight that could crush steel. "You really think you can just walk out of here and throw this in my face?" Jessica rolled her eyes, reaching for her suitcase. "Watch me." But just as her fingers curled around the handle, I grabbed her wrist and yanked her back with more force than I intended. The suitcase tumbled to the floor, and for the first time, a flash of genuine shock crossed her face. "What the hell, Daniel? Let go of me," she snapped, trying to pull away. I stared at her, my breath coming in ragged, uneven gasps. This wasn't the woman I had married. That version of her was long gone, replaced by someone I no longer recognized. Someone who had destroyed everything we had built together. I let her go, taking a slow step back. But in that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just a heartbroken husband anymore. I was a man with a plan. She thought she could betray me, humiliate me, walk away without facing the consequences. She was dead wrong. As Jessica strutted out the door, her heels clicking against the pavement, I stood frozen in place. But my mind was anything but still. Revenge. The word burned itself into my brain. I grabbed my phone and dialed the one person who could help me expose her for exactly what she was. The moment he picked up, I didn't waste time. "Ryan, I need a favor." My best friend hesitated on the other end. "Daniel, you sound off. What's going on?" "She's cheating on me," I said flatly. "And I need proof." A long pause, then a quiet, "Damn. I'm sorry, man." I don't need apologies. I cut him off. I need everything. Texts, emails, locations. Find out who this guy is. I want to ruin them both. Ryan exhaled sharply. Are you sure you want to go down this road? I was sure. Because if Jessica thought she could humiliate me and get away with it, she was in for a brutal reality check. 2 days later, Ryan sent me a file that shattered me all over again. Texts, hotel reservations, photos. She had been sneaking around for over 6 months. And the man she was seeing? Nathan Caldwell, a senior executive at her company. A married man. A father. Oh, this was perfect. Jessica wasn't just cheating. She was entangled in an affair that could destroy an entire family. And that was exactly what I intended to do. I wasn't just going to expose them. I was going to burn everything to the ground. For the next week, I meticulously planned my revenge. Jessica had no idea that I was onto her. She kept sneaking around, convinced that I was too clueless to notice. But I was waiting, and the perfect opportunity was right around the corner. Her company's upcoming gala. It was the ideal setting. Every executive, investor, and employee would be there, including Nathan's wife. If I played my cards right, their little secret would be exposed in front of hundreds of people. Jessica thought she could live a double life? Thought she could destroy me and walk away unscathed? She was about to learn just how wrong she was. The night before the gala, I sat alone in my dimly lit apartment, absently running my fingers along the rim of my whiskey glass. The burn of the liquor didn't even register. I was too wired, too focused. The plan had to be flawless. Ryan had come through spectacularly. He managed to hack into Jessica's phone, extracting every damning conversation between her and Nathan Caldwell. The messages were disgusting. Jessica, I can't wait to see you at the gala. Maybe we sneak off somewhere? Nathan, you know I can't resist you, baby. My wife will be there, but she's clueless as always. Jessica, I love how reckless you are. Turns me on. Nathan, you turn me on more. I clenched my jaw so hard it ached. The sheer level of disrespect. They had been treating me like a fool, sneaking around, laughing behind my back, and making a mockery of Nathan's own wife. Not anymore. I made another call. Tyler. He answered on the second ring. Michael, my man. Everything's set. The footage will play on the big screen at just the right moment. I let out a slow breath. Good. Tyler hesitated. You sure about this? It's gonna be brutal. A cold, humorless smile spread across my lips. That's the point. The day of the gala, Jessica was radiant. She had no idea she was walking straight into her own execution. Twirling in front of the mirror, she admired her sleek black dress, a satisfied grin on her face. How do I look? She asked, her voice dripping with confidence. I forced a smile. You look unforgettable. She beamed, completely unaware. She had no idea what was coming. I walked into the gala with Jessica by my side, my hand resting lightly against the small of her back. To the outside world, we looked like a picture-perfect couple. If only they knew the truth. Across the room, my eyes landed on Nathan. He stood beside a woman with delicate features and exhausted eyes. His wife. She was laughing softly at something someone had said, completely oblivious to the humiliation she was about to endure in front of everyone. Good. Jessica's gaze found Nathan, and in that moment, I saw it. The way her lips curled into a subtle, knowing smile. They thought they were being discreet. They weren't. The evening's speeches kicked off, and Jessica and Nathan gravitated toward the stage, whispered Daniel to each other in hushed, eager tones. Their excitement was barely contained. As they stood there, basking in their little world, I pulled out my phone and sent a single message to Tyler. Showtime. The ballroom lights dimmed. The massive screen behind the stage flickered to life. At first, everyone assumed they were about to watch some routine corporate promotional video. Then the text messages appeared. I can't wait to see you at the gala. You turn me on more. A wave of gasps rippled through the crowd. Confused murmurs spread like wildfire as people exchanged bewildered glances, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. And then the Real bomb dropped. A video began playing. Jessica, Nathan, entwined in a dimly lit hotel room. Sheets tangled around them. Their whispered moans, once meant for secrecy, now amplified in the stunned, breathless silence of the ballroom. The atmosphere turned thick and suffocating. Beside me, Jessica's entire body went rigid. Across the room, Nathan's wife let out a piercing scream. Then chaos. Jessica spun to face me, her expression drained of all color. Her lips quivered as she tried to form words. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice shaking. I met her gaze, cold and unyielding. "You did this?" she choked out, barely able to get the words past her lips. I tilted my head slightly, my voice deathly quiet. "No, Jessica. You did this." On the other side of the ballroom, Nathan's wife, Emily, collapsed into a chair, her body racked with sobs. Their colleagues, their bosses, the very people they had tried to deceive, stood frozen in horror. Nathan looked like he wanted to disappear. Security stepped forward, murmuring about shutting off the screen. But it didn't matter. It was too late. The damage had already been done. Jessica's career, over. Nathan's marriage, ruined. Their reputations, beyond repair. I leaned in close, my voice a venomous whisper against Jessica's ear. "Next time," I murmured, "think twice before cheating on a man who has nothing left to lose." Then, without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving her to drown in the wreckage of the life she had destroyed. The video ended, and yet Jessica remained frozen in place, standing in the center of the ballroom like a broken doll. The reality of what had just happened hit her like a freight train, but there was no undoing it. The room was suffocatingly silent, except for the guests, who now whispered to one another, some watching her with pity, others with fascination, as if she were some kind of grotesque spectacle. Her hands trembled as she reached out, as if physically trying to grasp the unraveling strands of her life, desperate to rewind time. Emily, however, was not as paralyzed. With her entire body shaking with rage, she turned to Nathan, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "You," she seethed. "How long? How long have you been screwing her behind my back?" Nathan, looking ghostly pale, reached for her, his voice weak. "Emily, let's not do this here." "Oh, don't worry," she spat, her tone sharp as shattered glass. "We won't be doing this here. We'll be doing this in court." A fresh wave of gasps rippled through the crowd. Jessica flinched at the words, her entire body visibly trembling. Nathan turned to her, his face lined with desperation. "Say something," he hissed under his breath, but Jessica could barely think. Her frantic gaze found mine, her husband, her lips parted slightly, her eyes pleading, begging, "Please, save me." I didn't. I simply tilted my head and smiled. "You did this to yourself." The crowd erupted into murmurs, whispers, and scandalized gasps. Jessica bolted. She grabbed the hem of her dress, shoving past people, her heels clicking furiously against the ballroom floor. But no matter how fast she ran, she couldn't outrun what had already been done. That night, she locked herself in a hotel bathroom. Her breaths came in ragged gasps. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Her boss, her coworkers, her family, and then came the headlines. Top executive caught in scandalous affair. Shocking video leaks at gala. Cheating wife and corrupt CEO. The affair that destroyed 2 careers. Scorned husband's revenge. How he exposed his wife's betrayal to hundreds. Her entire existence had been reduced to a spectacle. She stood in front of the mirror, staring at herself. The polished, powerful woman she used to be, gone. Her fingers trembled as she tried to call me again. I didn't answer. Her vision blurred with hot, shameful tears. She was alone. Utterly, completely, alone. And the worst part? The fall was only just beginning. The next morning, Jessica walked into work with her head lowered, oversized sunglasses of Daniel, the evidence of a sleepless, tear-soaked night. She could feel their eyes on her, the whispers, the judgment, but she wasn't prepared for what awaited her. At the entrance, security stopped her. Her boss, Mr. Bennett, stepped forward, his face unreadable. "Jessica," he said, his tone flat. She swallowed, her throat dry. "Sir, I—" He handed her a manila envelope. "Termination papers." Her breath caught. "Effective immediately," he said, his voice devoid of sympathy. "For misconduct and violating corporate policies." Her chest tightened. "Please, I can explain." Bennett raised a hand, silencing her. "There's nothing to explain. You humiliated this company. Pack your things. You're done." The office was silent. Dozens of her co-workers watched from their desks. Some whispered. A few smirked. Tears burned at the edges of her vision as she clutched the envelope. She wasn't Jessica Monroe, the rising executive, anymore. She was nothing, and everyone knew it. Nathan Caldwell's downfall came just as swiftly. His wife wasted no time. She filed for divorce the same day the scandal broke. She took the house, the cars, full custody of their children. But that wasn't even the worst of it. His company's board of directors held an emergency meeting behind his back. By the end of the day, he was out. Nathan Caldwell wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a liability. He tried calling Jessica, but she was too busy drowning in the mess she had created. Neither of them could save the other, and I had made sure of it. 2 weeks later, I heard knocking at my apartment door. First it was soft, then harder, more frantic. I opened it. Jessica stood there, her once glossy hair, tangled mess, her perfect complexion, pale and hollow, her designer dress, wrinkled and clinging to her like a ghost of who she used to be. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice breaking. I said nothing. Tears welled in her eyes. "I lost everything," she choked out. "My job, my friends. No one will even look at me." I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "And," she swallowed, "I made a mistake." I smirked. "You sure did. Can we fix this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I still love you." I tilted my head slightly, studying her. "Oh, you love me?" My voice was thick with mockery. She nodded frantically, desperation painted across her face. I let out a dry, bitter laugh. "That's funny. I don't recall love being a factor when you were screwing another man." A single tear slipped down her cheek. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something. Maybe an excuse, maybe a plea. Slam. I shut the door in her face. And for the first time in months, I felt free. Jessica had always thrived on control. Her career was her identity. The high-rise office, the morning lattes, the constant admiration from colleagues. It all made up the woman she thought she was. Not anymore. Now, she woke up in a rundown one-bedroom apartment, where the wallpaper curled at the edges, the air reeked of damp carpet, and the neighbors fought so loudly she couldn't sleep. Since the scandal broke, she had applied to 37 different companies. Every single one rejected her. "We're looking for someone else. The position has been filled. We've decided to move in a different direction." It didn't matter how qualified she was. The second they saw her name, the interview was over. And the worst part? Even the friends who used to hang on her every word had abandoned her. She called them. No one answered. She tried arranging coffee meetups. No one showed. She even lied to herself, convincing herself it was all just bad timing. But deep down, she knew. The moment her name became synonymous with betrayal and scandal, she became toxic. A liability. Someone no one wanted to be seen with. And if Jessica thought she had it bad, Nathan Caldwell had it worse. His divorce was finalized in record time. Emily hadn't just kicked him out. She had gone for the throat. She took the house. She took the vacation home. She took the cars. She drained the savings account. But the most brutal part? She took full custody of their 2 children. Nathan had spent years portraying himself as the perfect family man. Now, he wasn't even allowed within 50 feet of his own kids. And as if that wasn't enough, his former colleagues had completely cut him off. The moment that video played at the gala, the company's stock took a nosedive. Investors wanted nothing to do with a scandal-stained CEO. So they erased him. No severance package. No farewell speech. No second chances. By the time 3 months passed, Nathan had sold his Rolex collection just to keep up with rent. The man who once walked around in tailored Armani suits and drove a custom Bentley, now he was scrolling through Craigslist, desperate for any job that would take him. And, just like Jessica, he found nothing. One evening, Jessica sat alone in her dimly lit apartment, staring at her phone. Her fingers trembled as they hovered over my contact. She had exhausted every option. Finding a new job? Impossible. Turning to her old friends? Useless. Rebuilding her reputation? A joke. She had one person left. Me. The man she had betrayed. The man she had laughed at. The man she had once looked in the eye and said, "I can do whatever I want." She took a deep, shaky breath and pressed call. She held her breath. Voicemail. She tried again. Straight to voicemail. Tears stung her eyes as she gripped her phone, her nails digging into her palm. For the first time since her spectacular downfall, she realized she had no one left. That night, as the rain poured outside, I sat in my apartment, completely at ease, a whiskey in my hand, a new life unfolding. Then, a knock at the door. I already knew who it was. I let her wait. Then, finally, I pulled the door open. There she was, Jessica, the woman who once glided through life like a goddess, untouchable, admired, envied. Now, she was wrecked. Her designer clothes were wrinkled and hung loosely off her frame. Her hair, once styled to perfection, was a tangled mess. Her face, puffy, blotchy from crying. She looked up at me with hollow eyes. "Daniel," she whispered. "Please." I raised an eyebrow. "Please what?" She swallowed, forcing herself to say it. "Let me in." For the briefest moment I considered it. Letting her in. Listening to whatever excuse she had prepared. But then I remembered the texts, the hotel room, the smirk she had given me as she walked out of our home, certain she was untouchable. The months of betrayal she carried out behind my back. And I smiled. "No," I said simply. Her eyes went wide. "Daniel." Slam. I shut the door. She didn't move for a full 5 minutes. Then, finally, I heard her footsteps shuffle away, and I laughed. Because at long last, Jessica was experiencing the one thing she had so easily served me: loneliness. A week later, she made one final attempt. A desperate text. "Jessica, Daniel, please. I know I hurt you. I know I made mistakes. But I've lost everything. I can't find work. I can't even afford my apartment. Please, just talk to me." I stared at my phone. Then I typed, "Daniel, you once told me you could do whatever you wanted. Daniel now? So can I?" Then I blocked her number. And that was the last time I ever heard from Jessica. The months that followed sealed her fate. She was evicted from her apartment. She had to sell off her designer wardrobe just to afford food. She sent out over 100 job applications. Not a single company would touch her. Her name became a corporate joke. Nathan tried reaching out. She ignored him. After all, what good was a drowning man to another drowning woman? And me? I moved on. I built a new life, a better life. And every so often, I'd hear whispers about Jessica. How she had disappeared from high society. How she had faded into obscurity. How she was nothing now. And I would smile. Because in the end, I won. And Jessica? She got exactly what she deserved. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like.